Friends, if you're looking for real old school laughs, you're in for a treat because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember MEAD magazine? Then it went woke? Well, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today.
We're gonna get a little bit crazy. Wild and maybe even vulgar, if you please. It's after dark and we're gonna light it up. Got some fun in store for humanities. It's time for midnight sex after dark. A little naughty, will hopefully make you chuckle. But we ain't trying to hurt nobody, so get ready quick on the double, 'cause it's time for midnight sex after dark.
Welcome to Midnight's Edge After Dark. That's right, it's a scream. Tonight, we're going to talk about all your favorite Halloween things to do, your favorite scary movies, traditions, all that good stuff. How's everybody doing? Welcome to the program. I am Tom Connors, or Tom Dracula, or Tom Ferratu. Whichever you prefer. And we also have with us CC Karaoke. He's dressed as a spaceman as always. So
Well, I mean, I'm an alien, so it's just my spacesuit.
is that what
from
it
the mo-
is?
yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
okay, I
yeah,
get
I
it.
live on the
Yeah.
mothership.
Oh, that explains a lot.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. See. So how you doing, CC?
I'm doing really, really well. I went on a rather profound and life-changing trip the last couple weeks, and now I'm back. So, hi.
Chicago.
Yeah, I did pass through there. Didn't get a chance to see Nick, but maybe next time.
Did you get shot at?
No. Thankfully, I did not. And I have to watch out, though. There's always a risk.
There is, especially when Alec Baldwin's in town. Hello. We also have with us Price of Reason. How you doing?
Good. How's it going?
It's good. It's been a strange Halloween. This year just didn't feel Halloweeny enough to me. I don't know. I didn't get the decorations out. I didn't do the trick-or-treating thing tonight. Although there wasn't a lot of kids out. We had like the Indian summer thing up until like other than a couple of days last week, and then all of a sudden today, of all days, it decides it's going to get cold and wet. It's been rainy since last night.
Oh,
so.
that's never good. But also,
Yeah, so it sucks for the kids. Yeah.
I also, and I could be wrong on this, I think that so many people are focused on this election and politics. I feel like somehow the Halloween
It's its own
spirit,
horror show.
yeah, the Halloween spirit has kind of been pushed aside. You don't hear a lot about it. It's like people are focusing on other things, I think.
I made a point of getting out of your country before the day, just in
Right.
case.
Hey, D-Bud, you can't prove that. I mean, maybe I did. Maybe I still can't prove it. Can't prove I ate all the candy. But anyhow, who knows who might pop in here in the meantime. But let's say hello to all the folks we got in the chat. Hopefully you're having a happy Halloween out there. Hopefully your kiddos have gone out and gotten their goodies and they're warm and watching some Charlie Brown or Garfield or something fun for Halloween. And you're just cozying up with us here. And yeah, we're going to talk about just some of our favorite Halloween traditions, some scary movies, whatever you guys want us to talk about. Send in some super chats, ask us some questions about stuff. And yeah, we got D-Bud in the house, as we already pointed out. We have Jason Webster here, Many Dragons here. We got Lombardi 1969. Beep Bop Boop is in the house. They did a Universal Monster movie marathon. There you go. Then we got Juan Carlos Gonzalez Jr., if I could talk. We got Bryant Barth in the house. Jeremy Winfield. SC is in the house. 11 Alpha. Penny's here. How you doing, Penny? We got Jonathan Conroy. Phoenix Knight is rising in the chat. How you doing? Jeremy Winfield. So many more. Southern Vikings here. Cosmic Squirrel. So many regulars. Glad to see you. Hit the like button. Share out the stream. Let everybody know that we're live. That will help us out here. We got Snorta Poopus Cuber in the house. How you doing, Snorta Poopus? We also have Scott Hughes here. FKHC 2005 is here early. I don't know if they still are, but welcome. Ham Dinger is here. And so many more. Hit that like button. Share out the stream like we said. CC's been a member for 25 months. Thank you for the support. And also being a panel member. D-Bud's going to watch The Great Pumpkin after dinner. There you go. There you go. It's awesome. And so, yeah, Dark Hierophant says Happy Halloween. Happy Halloween to you. We got Dead Man in the chat. Carlos Alfredo Lopez as well. And Carly and Rogue. Says they watched Beetlejuice today with my friend. And I liked it personally and she loved it. Well, at least some people did. I don't know. Yeah, we were kind of just talking. Actually, it's funny. We were just kind of talking about this before the show because there's all this talk about the cliffhanger thing again. I'm like, this is like the third time they've announced a gender swapped cliffhanger. There's even a one hanging out there from a while back that Stallone's supposedly doing as a totally different project. But yeah, that just got me onto Beetlejuice, where I'm just like, you know what? It gets a certain point where some of these movies, if they're just one and we're way past a certain due date, no more sequels. Right? Like, that's why I feel about this. Just leave them alone. Although, Price, you did make a good point. The cliffhanger isn't exactly one that you know, isn't saying, oh, don't ever make a sequel to it. It's not like Stallone's best movie ever or anything like that. And as long as he's involved, I don't see why anybody wouldn't want to see it, but I don't see anybody being interested in the gender swapped remake.
Yeah, I agree that people probably wouldn't be interested, but it's not such a big deal for me. It's not the same thing as some kind of IP that everybody cares about. It was a movie that what I was telling you is that the main reason it succeeded is because Sylvester Stallone is really good in a role like this, and John Lithgow was good as a bad guy. But it's not that the storytelling or there's anything so special about the movie. It's just it's a movie that gets by on the likability of the performances and the cast involved. I think that's one of the reasons why it did so well. And if you're just going to do it with some other people, it's nothing. And it's not like you're ruining a beloved IP here.
Yeah, well, and I guess this news today says they scrapped that sequel, and so now they're back to the reboot again, according to this. So, yay. So,
I think I watched it once. I
yeah,
vaguely remember that I probably did.
It's one of his better ones, but not his best, obviously. I mean, if you don't count all of the Rocky and Rambo movies in the top 10, I mean, I guess you could say it's probably in his top 10. But it's not nearly as good as like Demolition Man or what's some of the other ones we brought up before the show. I can't remember now. But yeah, no, I mean, it's not screaming for a sequel anyway. But I mean, Price, like you said, as far as like you could come up with some scenario where some people are trapped or something's going down on a mountain and Stallone's character's been kind of retired and living up there. And they need his help because he's the old school guy. And maybe you could do something.
Maybe you could have done that. If you would have brought Glenn Powell to be a new climber,
right?
You know, a Sydney Sweeney level woman that's somehow stuck with him on a mountain. And the only way they can get off is at the end, get off. The only way they can get off the mountain is that they need Stallone to like, he's the ranger
well,
now.
Better yet, you have it like be a group of kids stuck up there. That really gives Stallone a good reason.
Yeah,
they got up here on their own. They can get down on their own. Well, it's a bunch of kids. You brought a bunch of kids up here? You maniacs.
Yeah, that could be funny.
We got to save the kids. I think it'd be funny. But yeah, it doesn't sound like that's happening anyway. We got Beep Bop Boop. Thank you for the support, Beep Bop Boop. Sending in pound $4.99. Pound that like button if you haven't already. Says, Happy Halloween, everyone. Well, happy Halloween to you. How would you rank the classic monster movies? And which iconic monster comes out on top in a fight? Keep it spooky. Well, that's a very, very interesting question indeed. So yeah, I guess what Beep Bop Boop is referring to here would be like the classic Universal monsters, probably anything pre 1960s, basically. So yeah, let's cover some of these because I know Price, you're somewhat of a horror fan. CC, not so much. But have you seen like all the classics, CC, like Dracula and Frankenstein and Wolfman and all those? Or
I've seen some of them, but my favorite was always the Blob.
oh, that's a good one. There you go. What about you, Price? What would you be your favorite classic?
Classics. If you're looking at really these kind of very old ones,
Yeah,
uh,
specifically says the Universal, but
you know, I like Nosferatu. That's an old movie that I liked. I liked Psycho. I think
oh
that's
yeah,
sort of a horror movie, I guess.
just
Um,
fits in there. Yeah.
just fits in there. I think I like that kind of stuff. You know, some of those older Dracula and Frankenstein, I've seen them. They're all right. I can understand why they were important when they came out, but I haven't really connected with them in that way that I love watching them all the time, even though I recognize their place in cinema history. I think I like stuff that's more 70s and 80s when it comes to, you know, Friday the 13th. I've seen every Friday the 13th movie,
Right.
even the crappy ones, which is many of them. I've seen Halloween. I think I've seen every Halloween movie.
Right.
Nightmare on Elm Street. Those are things that I've seen. You know that I've seen The Exorcist as well, but
Right.
Rosemary's Baby. I don't know. I've probably seen
Well, yeah.
enough, but really, I think that I like Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, you know, Friday the 13th. Those are my speed. I don't know why. I have no explanation why.
I was gonna say when you brought up Rosemary's Baby, I haven't seen all the monster movies. Definitely was more into the human horror stuff, right? You
Mm.
brought up Psycho, and it
Right.
reminded me of if we're talking about like old classic like horror but human horror. Check out Rebecca.
Mm.
That's one of that
That's
one's
one I haven't thought about. in a
pretty
while,
scary.
yeah. Me, I do like the classic Universal, and I've seen pretty much most of them. I would have to rank them in the order of Bride of Frankenstein, number 1, number 2, Dracula, then probably Frankenstein, then probably The Creature from the Black Lagoon, then probably Wolfman, then probably so it's kind of a tie between The Invisible Man and Phantom. The Mummy is okay. I've never been a huge fan of The Mummy, but I do know some people like The Mummy a lot, especially the Brendan Fraser rebootquels or whatever you want to call them. But yeah, no, I guess if one had to pick a winner who would win in a fight against all of them, I mean, Dracula has a lot in his favor as far as supernatural powers, but I mean, as far as pure brute force, I guess Frankie. I mean, but then again, the Gill Man's pretty strong too. I mean, have you seen the fuck this meme? I mean, he fucks some shit up. So, I don't know. Yeah, the Gill Man does need some more love. That's true. So yeah, that's a good question. I wonder what you guys think. Earlier, I think Dracula won the vote in the MEAD radio poll. So, yeah. Well, let's keep moving here. Let's see what you guys have else to say. What else to say? Oh, we got Steven in the chat, aka Deleted Scenes, who sends in 10 and says, Happy Halloween. Woo. Just did a rewatch of Silence of the Lambs. I have so many copies of Silence of the Lambs. No trick-or-treaters again this year, but I have a plan for the access candy. Thanks for putting up with me all these years. Dropping what is that? I think that's some coins or something. It's kind of weird to see on the yellow. I think that's some coins, is what he's saying, and then a pumpkin for jack-o'-lantern. So happy Halloween to you, Steven. And yeah, I kind of had the same thing with this year. Is like I was kind of glad I didn't. I decided against doing the trick-or-treating because I think I've seen a whole of half a dozen kids come by, if that. So I probably wouldn't even have gave out all that much candy. And with Sadie, it's kind of a pain in the butt. And I'm just not decorated or nothing this year, and I just wasn't feeling it. SFX F314 Sabretooth Raptor sends in 5 and says, Happy Halloween, all. 1, 2, 3. Ha, ha, ha. Dracula Bat Tom. Italian, Polish versions. Okay, we need Italian. Okay. Let's see here. I'm a vampire and shit. You know? Like, I'm going to bite you in your neck. Polish. There is a Polish vampire already, actually. That's a movie I can recommend. It's a really, really obscure film. It's called A Polish Vampire in Burbank. And Eddie Deazen's in it. And it was a movie I saw as a kid, and I couldn't figure out for years what it was. And I finally did a few years back. But I don't know. What would a Polish vampire sound like, though, otherwise? I don't know. That's a good question. What's the Polish accent? I'm not real familiar with that one. Would that be kind of more Germanic-ish? Help me out here.
I don't know. You just say Polish. I'm thinking pole dancing.
I know what it sounds like, but I just can't do one.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry, I can't really come up with one off the top of my head. So, but hopefully you enjoyed the one that you got. Was it disappointed Danny DeVito didn't? Yeah, I know he was kind of underused in the Beetlejuice. So yeah, Shadow might know. Yeah, Shadow'd probably know. Shadow knows everything. So yeah, so let's what's one of your guys' earliest like Halloween memories or favorite Halloween traditions that you have to do? Now, Cece, I don't know how big Halloween is up there in Canada, so you have to clue us in on that. But is there any traditions or anything that you guys have or you do personally from when you were a kid or anything like that?
Oh, heck. I don't know. I mean, I think we're pretty similar to you. I mean, so long as you don't live in Cracktown and it's safe to go, ringing people's doorbells and you get actual candy. I noticed down south you got traditions where you actually like do trunk or treating and stuff like that, where it's like pre-organized community events, so you don't have to risk ringing people's doorbells. But certainly up here in Canada, we do that. We have as long as you're in a safe neighborhood. So we pretty much did that, yeah. It's the old thing where you get the pillowcase. Forget that small pumpkin bag. No, you get a big pillowcase, and you run as fast as you can from door to door to maximize your candy threshold and try and fill that pillowcase. And man, I filled my pillowcases every year. That was the goal. If I couldn't fill the pillowcase by the time people turned their lights off, somehow I was going with people who were too slow. So that was kind of the tradition. It was a good workout, good like marathon run,
So that's what you associate most with Halloween is going out and getting candy.
Oh yeah, candy.
Candy.
Yeah. And there's always that person who dresses up as a scarecrow or a dummy, and they sit in the chair, and you think that they're not a real person until they jump up at you and freak you the fuck out. Those are always good. Or the people who turn their entire garages into like whole like Halloween houses, and the whole thing's decked out and they've put a ton of effort into it. Those are always fun too.
I usually do a pretty good. I mean, I don't go totally out like Griswold style, but I usually do some decorations. But this year I just didn't. But so Price, what's your Halloween tradition that you do, or what's something you think about most when you think about when Halloween as a kid?
Nothing really. I think that I've never really been a huge fan of this holiday. Yeah, I think that as a kid, I've lived in different places, but I remember as a kid, maybe there was a time that I lived in a place that had more houses and it wasn't more apartments. And maybe as a kid, it was kind of an interesting experience discovering this whole trick or treat and doing this whole thing. But to say that I have real traditions beyond that, not really. Can't think. I usually I don't like all this costume stuff, and Not into all of that kind of stuff. It all seems dumb to me. Sorry, I know everybody loves it. I apologize. I'm not
You
saying
were
you're dumb if you
born
like.
like 40 though. That's what I feel like. You were like born and you were like already 40.
Yeah, I
Probably.
agree with this.
Now, I'm not saying I don't want to suggest that you're dumb if you like dressing up and you like Halloween. That's perfectly fine, and I love people that have that kind of enthusiasm, and wanna do that. I respect it, but at the same time, just for me, I don't connect with it. I don't really care. Maybe if I was hanging out with a group of people that were very enthusiastic, they could somehow get me on board, and I wouldn't wanna be like a party pooper, but otherwise, I don't wanna give out candy. I don't want anybody to give me candy. I don't wanna put on a costume. I don't have to see other
You're
people in
like John
costume.
Cusack and say anything right now.
So yeah, I guess I'm a party pooper. What can I do? It's not my thing, but I respect that people enjoy the holiday, and I don't want to take away people's joy away from them. That's not what I do.
Right. Well, no,
Not intentionally, at least.
Halloween was always a big deal growing up. I mean, to me, maybe I don't know if Halloween or Christmas would be my favorite holiday. I mean, Christmas is great; you get presents and all the treats and all that stuff. But Halloween has not only treats, but you get to dress up. So I mean, I guess it's a trade off there. But I mean, especially as somebody like me who was always kind of a theater kid, getting to dress up for Halloween was always, and I was always very competitive with like the costume parties and stuff like that, or like the costume. We'd have like a costume contest in school and whatnot.
You know
So
that
yeah,
Rachel Ziegler said that she's a theater kid?
yeah. Well, she don't know what she's talking about.
So
Jenna
you and
Ortega,
her
on the
are
other
in
hand,
league.
I could believe it, but
You're in league with each
yeah.
other.
No, she can't even call herself a legitimate theater kid. She's never even watched Snow White, probably all the way through.
Probably not.
But no, yeah, like I always loved dressing up. I won first place one year for dressing up as the Danny DeVito Penguin for
Nice.
Halloween that year. Um, trying to remember what other ones won me some good. I was always pretty good at coming up with some good stuff, but one year I was Freddy and stuff like that, and some other stuff. But like, yeah, no, it was always fun to come up with cool. My mom was always really good at making costumes when I was younger, so she made me like a full-bodied Spider-Man costume, Superman, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I mean, even probably better quality than what you could buy in a store at that time. So I mean,
I went
yeah,
on a run where I dressed up as condiments, ketchup and mustard.
right. Well, you're tall, so that works for you probably.
Eh,
You're slender anyway, so you can get away with that.
mustard's a pretty fat bottle.
Depends if you're Grey Poupon or not. But I mean, shit. When we grew up, I mean, your choices were either you wear something that your parents made, you made yourself, or you got one of these cheap fuckers from the store. Although, like, they weren't so cheap. I mean, but they looked cheap. You know, everybody I think had one of these at least once as a kid. Not Freddy, but I mean, the old. Basically, it's like a plastic bag you put over your body. And a plastic fucking mask that would probably cut you if you hit, if you put it on the wrong way because it's so sharp on the edges. Like, yeah, that's pretty much the basics of what you got for Halloween there as a kid if you didn't have like a full body costume. But now, like kids nowadays, you got all sorts of stuff out there now compared to what we had. But doesn't matter. It got us free candy. That's all that mattered in the end. So yeah, other than that, obviously my big tradition is horror films. And Phoenix Knight asks with a member chat, thank you, panel and chat. As far as movies and TV shows go, what hidden gems would you recommend? Well, I think this is a broad question, not just a horror right now. Let's see, hidden gems. Oh boy, that's a good question. Well, I mean, on the horror note, I was just talking yesterday about Renfield. I mean, it's gotten a little bit of a cult following now, but if you haven't checked out Renfield yet, do yourself a favor. That's a good one for Halloween night. I thought Wolf's was pretty good on Apple, and so was what the hell was the name of it? The Instigators wasn't too bad. Those are two brand new movies. As far as shows, I mean, most people now know about like the shows I used to recommend that were kind of lesser known, but I mean, people are watching Cobra Kai and Tulsa King and stuff like that now. So, gosh, I don't know, shows, hidden gems that nobody would really know though. Balls. What about you guys? CC, you watching anything lately or something you can recommend
Uh,
that you may not think people know too well?
we're talking stuff you might not have heard about. What We Do in the Shadows. I really enjoyed
That's a
that
fun
movie.
one, yeah.
Yeah. Though, as far as movies that I probably watched a lot of times, Interview with a Vampire. Actually, I really enjoyed that movie. Don't know if it's. I never read the book, so I can't speak to how faithful it is to the source material, but I really enjoyed the movie. Another one of those Ebert 4-star movies. I read the review and I was like, okay, I got to see it. And I loved it. And before I knew it, I watched it 5-6 times. I feel like that's fallen
Yeah.
under the radar a bit over the years.
Any other shows or anything?
It's a tough question. Obviously, I'm a Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan, but that's not
Yeah.
under
that's
the
probably
radar.
yeah. What about you, Price?
Hidden gems. That was a
Yeah,
question,
stuff
right?
most people probably wouldn't have heard of, shows or movies. Yeah. Doesn't have to be
Interesting.
Halloween oriented or anything like that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hidden gems, things that nobody. There was a show called Travelers that probably nobody
Oh,
watched
yeah.
except for me, and I thought
I
it was
keep
pretty
hearing
good.
about that. Yeah. I haven't
It
seen
was
it.
it was a show that I think was a Canadian production, and
Yeah, it is.
it had a kind of idea with time travel that I thought was. I like time travel, so I'm always into shows like that if they have an interesting spin on it. And I thought that they were doing something interesting with it. It lasted for maybe 4 seasons. It I don't think enough people watched that show. I think it was basically me, and maybe Matthew Kadish watched it. I think there were 2 viewers, me and him, and, I guess that wasn't enough to sustain, the show for a 5th season, which really would have been nice to see a 5th season from it, but it ended abruptly, rather abruptly, and,
It
as
didn't get a
opposed to
proper
those weird.
ending.
What'd you say?
Didn't get a proper ending.
I think that they suspected, so they left something that's sort of you could think it's an ending, but I feel like they probably wanted to make another season and didn't get a chance. It would have been nice to get one more to kind of tie things together, which they didn't do. But the one thing I want to say is that as opposed to those kind of acolyte weirdos, uh, the show ended. It ended abruptly, and nothing happened. Sometimes you have a show and there's actually a cult following or some people that like it and watch it. It ends and that's it. You kind of man up, you see that it ended, and you say, okay, well, there's no more show. Sometimes you gotta deal with things in life. So if you like The Acolyte and it's done, then be a man, or maybe that's not a good description of the people that like that show. But never mind. You talk about your gems. Sorry.
No, we pretty much all have brought some up. You were the last
I
one.
don't know how I diverted the whole conversation into The Acolyte, because as I was thinking about it, it annoyed me how many times I've accepted it that a show has ended, and like you don't see any kind of me calling people names or having meltdowns. As much as you like a show, sometimes there was that show on Netflix. You know what? This is good for Halloween, actually, sort of. What was the David Fincher one? Mindhunter. What was it?
Oh yeah.
I think so.
That was a show that was really good. I think it had 2 seasons, and you're on the edge of your seat waiting to see what season 3 is going to bring you. It's a well-made show. It was interesting. It was well written. I just wanted to see more of it, and I think a lot of people felt the same way. And between Fincher and Netflix, they just decided to give everybody a middle finger and to end it. And again, sometimes even though it's inconvenient and it's annoying, you just have to accept things for what they are.
I agree with you, and that's why I quit on Netflix years ago. Actually, over the OA of all things, of all shows, it's like, okay, it's a streaming service. You have control over this stuff, maybe more than you ever did before. I understand if for financial reasons you don't have enough viewers, you want to cancel a show. Okay, fine. Give these shows a conclusion, even if it's just like a 1 or a 2 hour special.
Right. Tell them
that
you
allows
have
yeah.
I agree with you. Why don't they have something in their contract that says, okay, if the thing has over X amount of viewers but not enough for review, for renewal, we'll give you X amount to just wrap it up in like an hour or two. Just do something to finish up the story. I think that would help them because it would make their catalog so
Yeah,
much better. There's
that's
so
the
many
big
shows.
problem, right? Like
Yeah,
like
but I
good
will say
show,
that.
good. So go for it.
So no, you go on. You go on.
I was like both the good shows and bad shows. Yeah, Netflix has this gigantic catalog of shows that don't have proper endings. And it's like whether it's a good show or a bad show, you want people to be invested in your product. Have a like an actual series finale. Just
Right, and
like a one episode order. And maybe it'll be a little bit junky and chonky because the writers have got 1 hour to wrap everything up. Fine, but at least they can, right?
right, at least give them the option to do it, and you're only improving your catalog because then shows that people already know didn't get renewed and they don't want to start investing in. If they know that there's an actual conclusion to the show, maybe they'll feel differently. As for the OA, and that's what I wanted to say, I started watching that. In the first season, I thought it was very interesting until the last episode. Once I saw the last episode of the first season, I don't know why, but I said to myself, this show is stupid and I never want to watch it again. I don't know why that I heard that voice in my head. Maybe it wasn't a good voice to have. I suspect that maybe other people had that voice because it really had an interesting idea up until that finale. But I kind of looked at that finale, scratching my head and thinking it really underdelivered for me.
Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, there's also a ton of people who did continue and were like, dude,
Was the second season good? Because all I know is the finale disappointed me and I didn't want to watch anymore.
put
But
it this way.
I
It's the
usually
kind of
trust.
show where you're like, what are they on? What were they smoking? Was there a lot of crack involved? It's like, that meme. There's a meme behind that show, where all like the equations are going through the person's head.
Right.
That's literally the definition of it. And like it's not going to be for everybody. It's not going to have a big audience, and that's probably why it was canceled. And the
No,
same
but,
thing
but
was
they had a really interesting idea with potential. They
yeah,
had me. Those initial episodes. I'm like, okay, let's see what's going on here because they were sort of they were kept kind of captured in these kind of things. Right? There was some guy that was like
and
holding them in some underground or his home or something. Am I getting this? Am I confused?
yeah. Well, it gave me kind of. It also gave me a little bit of an old like '80s show vibe in a certain way. Not Stranger Things exactly, but it was like about a group of kids, right?
Right, but it was cool. There was
Yeah,
something interesting going on, and I remember that it captured my attention. Like I first of all saw the only reason I watched it is that a friend of mine told me I should take a look at it, and I put it on. And initially, I'm like, I'm not going to like this, and then I kind of said, okay, this is sort of interesting. And like I said, it captured me. But then at the end, the last episode, they start doing these. That's the thing with the crack and the cocaine, whatever you were saying.
yeah,
That thing at the end there where they're starting to make weird noises and weird faces, and I'm like,
right.
what is this stupid thing? And I just
And
said,
look,
you know what? I like cocaine, and it's good, but sometimes
maybe
you
they
don't
had
you don't
no
you don't
idea where
too much.
maybe they had no idea where they were going or what they were doing. Maybe it would end like Lost, right? But right now, what you have is you have a show that they invested in. It's on the service,
That's true.
and it's a whole big box of mysteries that just ends without any kind of resolution. And
Yeah,
it's
that's annoying. I mean, I do feel for people that continued and really were into it, and you have the plug pulled like that. Like we both said, give them 2 hours. Say 2 hour movie, you
well,
wrap it up.
exactly. So what new subscribers are you going to pull in who are going to say, "Hey, I'm going to invest a bit of time in this OA show," when they're going to look at it and they're going to read anything into it and say, "Oh, well, I'm going to watch it and I'm not going to get any resolution out of it."
Lost
And the
was a
same
piece
thing
of
with,
shit show.
well,
Lost
yeah,
was a piece of shit. And I'm like a broken record. Probably people have heard me say it a million times. I knew Lost was shit. I'm so proud of myself that without knowing all the J.J. Abrams and Damon Lindelof, not knowing all the personalities involved, I knew that it was like a jerk off show. I saw a few episodes early on, and I had friends that were super excited about it, and I said, nope, I
I
don't
could
like
kind
this.
of tell where it was going right away
uh,
too, and I didn't even barely have to watch it. I was like, obviously, it's this whole like Sixth Sensey kind of thing. It was like really stupid.
Yanking your chain. Yeah, that's
season 3 for me is where I stopped drinking the Kool-Aid.
I
I,
never
I was
really
I was
bothered watching much of it at
tapped
all.
in till then.
Gonzalo Bergali has been here for 31 months. I just want to say that while we had it on the screen. But no, I agree with you guys. Like, one of those things I have is like, I won't get into a show anymore unless I know it's either finished
Exactly. Yeah.
or at least gets a couple seasons in, because it never fails whenever I start watching something new. It always gets canceled. That happened to me with V. That happened to me with the Terminator show. That happened to me so many times before. You were about to say something else, Price. I'm sorry.
Me, I don't think so. I think you were
No,
saying, and
we
I
all
agree
were.
with you.
Yeah, I was just agreeing with you. We're creating this thing with the audience where exactly we don't want to invest in a show until we know that it's finished, and that's not good for that's not good for actually making money because you have to invest several seasons into
Or retaining
a show.
an audience. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I don't trust anything to actually finish anymore. I know that old school TV had that same problem, but at least I mean. Like, okay, I mean, a sitcom is a little, the thing with serialized storytelling is you actually need a beginning, middle, and an end.
Yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. Actually,
would benefit too, but
no, go
on.
ahead.
No, sitcoms still also need an ending, but they don't need it as badly.
Sitcoms are a little easier because you can
Yeah.
leave those off, and those are kind of like generally self-contained until you get to certain shows. But like, yeah, Super Omicron. I'm talking about both versions of V actually, but yeah, more specifically the last one.
Even shows like Murder, She Wrote, for example. I mean, I used to be into that show, right? Episode of the week. That was a drama. It wasn't a sitcom, but it if it ends without a real finale, is it not gonna
Yeah,
suck?
one of those procedural kind of shows. Yeah,
but yeah, procedurals, right?
If it's a show that clearly has like a through line that you need to kind of tie up loose ends, then yeah. But if it's a show like a sitcom or a cop show or one of those kind of crime dramas, most of the time, yeah.
It's such a big part of streaming, and streaming never really tapped into that. It's like the through line, the through line plot is such a key part of this.
Soap opera used to be the ones that used to have that the most, actually, back in the day. It wasn't until like more prestige television or probably like trying to think of a show that actually really had strong continuity before like the 80s or 90s. And I can't think of one. Because most shows I've ever watched from the past, they're pretty self-contained almost every episode. Right? Yeah, certain characters will grow and certain things will stick around and certain characters will get introduced and stay and whatnot. But over, like, you watch an episode of Andy Griffith, you don't have to have seen the first season or two to understand an episode from season 3 or 4. Right? Like, that's my point. Is every episode is so self-contained. Same thing with just about every one of the sitcoms and procedural shows of the past. I mean, I can't think of too many shows. I mean, maybe the BBC had a few, because didn't like Prisoner and a few other shows had like maybe The Fugitive. But like even Mission Impossibles and stuff like that, I don't remember them ever really having like an ongoing through storyline that was really all that important or anything like that, unless I'm misremembering.
Well, I mean, I guess with stuff like The Prisoner, that was actually designed that way, right?
Right, and that's what I mean, like specific things like that. Yeah, well, that's true. That's a mini series there. So yeah. Like, I mean, yeah, but you guys are mentioning like Dynasty and all that kind of stuff in the chat. I mean, those were basically primetime soap operas at the end of the day. So, I mean, unless it's a mini series, I won't count a mini series. But
I mean, Dinosaurs was one of my favorite shows growing up. The ending to that show was kind of obvious.
That actually was, they had a great ending for that show.
Exactly. And if they didn't get to do it, it would have been disappointing, but it wouldn't have ruined the show. It would still be worth watching. You wouldn't just be left hanging like with a half finished product, right? It stands on its own. Or Married with Children, another show I watched a lot of. You didn't need a finale for that either necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not too many of those shows like that anymore. Even when you start to get to like the comedies and such of the late aughts and all that, and even Friends and certain shows like that, they started having a continuity. It felt like I never really watched them, but like it just started feeling like it was getting more and more that way on a lot of shows. Like lately, I've been watching, believe it or not, Seinfeld. I never really watched it when it was first on.
Oh yeah,
that's a classic
so much
show.
of it in
I've been watching
syndication.
I've been kind of like watching it here and there. And I've been really enjoying that one, but yeah, they just don't make shows like that anymore where it feels like you can just bop in and out wherever. Because that's kind of how I got into watching it. It was because once in a while I got Paramount Plus through Amazon, so they have CBS that plays through there, my local CBS. And sometimes I'll just throw it on for background noise, and you know the shows they play it late at night. Well, they play like 2 or 3 episodes of Seinfeld in a row, so I kind of just got used to watching them. And so I just kind of just started going and watching them on my own in order, just to kind of see them. Because I never really watched them. I've seen like random episodes here or there, but like never actually sat down and watched the show. So like, yeah, there's always old classic stuff that you can sit down if you have never seen it, enjoy or rediscover, you know.
Yeah, I mean, minor overarching things like Seinfeld had a little bit of that where, what job George was working at, but that wouldn't
Right.
require you to really be caught up on it.
You could
I
just
mean,
watch a random episode, and if you
So
know
now
the
George
people
was
involved,
basically Larry David, right? Like, because I'm
Yeah.
kind
Yeah.
of figuring this out. Yeah. that's what I
have you
thought.
watched Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Yeah, I haven't seen that, but I've seen episodes of it. Again, same kind of thing. And I've
Man,
also seen
those are
some of the
like,
other
if you
stuff
like
that those
comedy,
guys
that's like, I can't think of it getting better than Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm, amongst the best
Yeah.
comedies I think ever
I
made.
do need to check out It's Always Sunny. I've seen a few episodes, but
Oh yeah, that's good.
that feels like a show. But a problem, again, that feels like a show where you almost have to kind of be up on the quasi continuity of sorts of the characters to kind of get some of the jokes. Because like my buddy was watching it one day, my former roommate, and I'm just like, I don't get this. He's like laughing his ass off, and I'm just like, I don't. He's like, you got to understand this, and then, and he's like,
you
well,
know,
you have to explain it to me. Is not funny.
I've never really connected with that. I kind of am in the same boat as you. I know people that religiously love that show, and anytime I put it on, I'm just like, okay. And I really like Danny DeVito. Like Danny
I
DeVito,
say he's one of the only characters in the show. He's kind of like the Kramer of the show in a way, to where like when he does his bits, I'm fine. I can laugh at his stuff because his stuff is just kind of out there. But like the rest of the gang, whenever they're scheming or
Yeah.
doing whatever they're doing, I don't quite know their characters well enough. So.
it seems like edgy humor for normies, but I don't want to be mean because so many people like it. So maybe I'm just a weirdo and I don't get it fully. Maybe I need to give it another chance. There's certain things that I also, for example, Arrested Development. People really like that show. I've watched it and I'm okay with it, but I don't think it's as good as some people think it is. I just think it's pretty good. Pretty okay sometimes. Not even all the time. Sometimes it could make me laugh a little.
What depends? Like with Curb, I've tried it and I've seen good portions of it, but you have to be into Larry David, right? Otherwise, you're just not gonna get it. You're not gonna enjoy
Yeah, I
it.
clearly know who he is, and I'm trying to. Maybe I've seen in more episodes of Curb than I realize, or was he in another show too?
Not really too much. I mean, on Seinfeld, he wrote a lot of the. He was
Yeah,
the
that I
executive
know, but
designer.
I've seen him in something to where maybe I have seen more of Curb Your Enthusiasm than I think.
The
Because,
thing
like,
with
yeah,
Curb
I
Your
could tell right away, like, because I was like, oh god, that's clearly Larry David. Because what also happened was
It is.
is
That's the
I
thing.
happened to catch like the last. It has to be one of the last episodes, because they just show them out of complete random order on the channel that I had them on originally. That's why I was like, I got to go watch these in order, because they ended up showing a one half of an episode that was a continuing episode, and they didn't show the other half right afterwards, and I got pissed. So that's what prompted me. I'm like, you motherfuckers! They showed a completely random different episode, and it happened to be an episode that I think is like one of the last episodes, because it's where Seinfeld gets his fucking show. And it's like, oh, okay, so George is basically Larry David. That's where I figured it out. I'm like, okay, I get it now.
Those are great
yeah.
episodes that you're describing. But really, what I can say is that I'm really surprised, considering what a kind of cinema and TV and pop culture person you are, that you've kind of skipped over Seinfeld. And
I did. I never really
it's unbelievable, really.
I don't know if there was another show that was on at the same time simultaneously that I was more into. At the time growing up, I was not into Seinfeld's comedy. To me at that time was so benign, and
Yeah.
the typical, like, you know,
I thought he was great, and I was kind of a weirdo and an outcast, and
I
I'd
was gonna
watch
say,
him and think, like, this is brilliant. I really,
I didn't
liked what he
like the
was doing.
show so much. I mean, I watched random episodes here and there. I'm like, I just didn't quite get the appeal at first, but I liked his stand-up. Like, his stand-up was fine, but like his humor was also like, he kind of reminded me of Cosby humor in a way, right? Where it's really safe. So to me at that point, I was into more edgier comedians like Carlin and Murphy and, Pryor.
Yeah, but I
and
liked
stuff
those
like that.
guys and still liked what happened on Seinfeld.
I don't know. It was just at that time, it was just me, and I just never got into it. And then it just kind of went on through years and years and years. And I've watched almost all of his concert films, and I've seen all his movies and stuff. And I tend to like it. It was really kind of when I started, between seeing the random episodes here and there and seeing his cereal movie from this last year, the Pop-Tart movie from this last year. it kind of got me, like going, I should really probably sit down and watch the show because you're right, I
mean,
should.
But I'll
I guess
say, sorry, go on, Cece.
I was like comparing it to Always Sunny, which you also mentioned, right? It's like what I love with Seinfeld is it took an idea from his stand-up act, like a concept about something about day-to-day life that we can relate to, and it applied it to an episode, right? There was an actual idea there, even though it was about nothing, and he made it funny.
Well, I think the
Whereas
hook
It's
is it's
Always
kind of more the other
Sunny,
way around, is that his
it,
life was actually
yeah.
dictating his shows. But yeah,
Whereas it's like a show like It's Always Sunny, I don't like it as much as Seinfeld. I like it, but like the humor is in how absolutely depraved the characters are. That's it.
which is kind of
That's the
similar to
concept.
Seinfeld, and that's the kind of same
It
kind
is,
of.
but it's not. I don't know. I mean,
And it also reminded me of Extras and a couple of other the Ricky Gervais shows. Like, they have a very similar kind of. They have what I
yeah.
call the awkward humor situation,
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah,
where you have somebody who does something that they know they shouldn't do, and then they like over obsess about it, and it ends up
it's just,
becoming a bigger deal than it should be. Like, that's almost every episode. Like,
It's Always
it's not.
Sunny
It's a
takes it
variation on that. Yeah.
to like literally awful levels, right? It takes it
Exactly.
way
Yeah.
over the line, whereas Seinfeld actually has a little bit of containment there.
More
They're awful
grounded.
people,
Absolutely.
but
Yeah.
The thing
Yeah.
with Seinfeld, though, is that I feel like I watched it when it aired live, and I really got the full experience. Comedy, doesn't always hold up in quite the same way. I still think, compared to a lot of other comedies of its era, it holds up very well. But I'm still saying that you kind of missed out on the greatest experience you could have had with it. When it comes to Curb Your Enthusiasm, I felt what a lot of people feel, that initially I watched a few episodes and I said, I don't like this Larry David guy. He really annoys
Yeah.
me. I don't like him. I don't want to watch this. But somehow I ended up watching another episode, and there's a moment that after you get upset and you don't like him and you don't like his show, something happens and you're like, okay, I get it. And from that moment that you're like, okay, I get it, that's it. You like his show, you like his comedy, and I think it's really either or. Either you hate him or you get it and you like it, and there's no other options in the middle.
Yeah, and the beauty of the show is that it's evergreen in a sense that since it's observational humor, it's stuff that is very evergreen. A lot of it.
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes there's
most
still
of it,
stuff
it's
that
so
you can
far
laugh
it
at
has
today.
been.
Yeah.
Well, because a lot of it's about friendships, relationships, just like I said, mostly everyday life, unless it's something that's related directly to something of the time, which I haven't ran into anything yet too much that I can think of offhand. But it's usually like that annoying situation you find yourself in, right? Like, that's kind of what it is, basically the stuff that informs his comedy. And then the more you realize, oh, this is him just basically retelling his life, with his friends and shit, it kind of makes sense. But Six is in the chat. Happy Halloween, Six. How you doing? Hopefully
Hey,
you're having
Six.
fun.
By the
with
way,
the
somebody was saying
trick-or-treaters.
that there's going to be a 4K Seinfeld collection.
That was another reason why I brought it up, is because that just happened to drop out of nowhere that they're doing that this year. Yeah.
But isn't it like a phony? When I see the HD now on Netflix or whatever they have it, they basically cut off part of the screen in order for it to look widescreen, even though it wasn't filmed in widescreen.
Sort of. Okay. Because this is something I made a point of. So if something is shot on film, you can go all the way up to whatever resolution you want. Now, my understanding, because the ones on Netflix, that's where I started watching it again, because I got Netflix again this month for Cobra Kai, and since Seinfeld's on there exclusively, I've been watching it from there. So I just happened to start watching it again, and now they're dropping the Blu-rays. But so what they do is they scan the film. Now, there's only, I think, the first episode and a few random shots here and there that are shot on video that they weren't able to upconvert or upscale to 4K or HD. So those you'll never be able to do anything about. There's just it's mostly in the very first pilot episode where there's a bunch of stuff that cuts to video that they don't have the film for. But otherwise, throughout the other episodes so far, the only times it isn't in full film HD is when it's just the establishing shots from like the outside and stuff like that. But anyway, so what they do is they scan the film, and you generally have on a 35 millimeter film, they'll have like a safety area on the outside, left, right, up and down, just in case. Now, like, I don't think you were here when Robert was here talking about Star Trek: The Next Generation when they were working on the Blu-rays for that.
I
they had
think maybe I
contem-
was, but okay,
yeah,
go
but
on.
he had mentioned, they contemplated opening up the mat and just having it be widescreen instead of being the full 4x3 mat. Because what you'll
Right,
do
I
is,
remember actually.
yeah, you'll gain a little bit more on the left and right. You'll lose a little bit on the top, but overall you might only lose about 10-15%, but you'll gain that much more on the sides. So you're like, it's a slight compromise, but as long as if you got the room there to work with, you can do a lot of things. The problem with TNG was that they had shit in the sides where you could see like the edge of the set or a microphone or a stage hand or something like that, because they knew it was going to be cropped off, right? So they weren't able to really work with it. Then he's like, well, now they could probably just use AI to erase them or something like that real easily. But then they just had to say, well, you know what? We're just going to do it in the 4x3, and that's it. So yes, the show was technically framed at 4x3, like most shows are. So as you'll see here, this is from the old 4x3 version. It cuts off right there at the top of Jerry's head. And yeah, you get quite a bit of room underneath her boobs there and whatnot. And you can see Jerry's pants and stuff down here for observation. Then you cut to the widescreen version of that same shot. And it's still got the same headroom. But as you'll see, they crop a little bit more off. But you're gaining a little bit more on the sides here, as opposed to the other one where it cuts a little more closer, see, on the sides. So it is just kind of a compromise of losing that little percentage at the bottom there to gain all this extra width
In
on the
this
sides.
shot, it seemed actually quite important that we see the full
Yeah,
picture.
it does kind of. Well, so what they're doing is, this is strange, for the 4K version, it's going to be the 4x3 original cut. So it'll be the full open up and down mat, as opposed to the Blu-ray is going to be the full widescreen mat. So you'll lose a little bit on the bottom in most cases, and sometimes maybe on the top, but you'll gain a little bit on the sides. So to me, I'm like, why aren't both versions available? Like on the 4K, it makes absolutely no sense.
Yeah, why
'cause
don't they give a 4K of everything? What do they want?
I don't know. I don't understand why they're doing it this way. It's kind of like a weird compromise. The Blu-ray set is going to be the widescreen version, and the 4K set is going to be the original TV aspect ratio. Go figure. I don't know.
But Blu-ray, isn't there Blu-ray 4K? Isn't there such a thing, or that's not what?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're doing a Blu-ray set, which is a standard Blu-ray,
but
and
not
that'll
4K.
be the widescreen. Yeah, not 4K. That's going to be the widescreen versions like they are on Netflix right now. But then the box set that is 4K UHD is going to be the 4x3 aspect ratio like it was on television.
They're just fucking annoying. Why don't they make a?
I know, right?
The ultimate. Well, yeah, they
But
should.
then you have the other side of this where you have shows like Buffy and stuff where they've literally cropped off the
that was
top and the
tragic.
bottom to fit them. Yeah, so like, because
It's
they
not-
didn't go
with
back
that-
to the original film. That's why.
It's not even just that. That was one of the worst quote unquote upgrades of all time, because they completely redid the entire color spectrum of the show. They undid the work of the man who color graded the show, and he was totally despondent about it. He felt it was tragic that his work was destroyed, and that was one of the last things he said before he died. I was like, man,
That's too bad.
that really hit hard, man.
Somebody's car
They
alarm's
got
going off.
they got to fix that, you know.
Hopefully it's not mine. Beep Bop Boop sends in another £4.99. Thank you so much. Says, I was rewatching Ed Wood tonight, Johnny Depp's best movie in my opinion. It's up there. When would you say Tim Burton peaked, and who really was better, Boris or Bela? As an actor, Bela, but Boris was really good too. As far as when he peaked, we've had this conversation before. I kind of say that the moment, I wouldn't say he peaked, but the moment where things kind of went off the rails for Tim Burton was Mars Attacks. And I say that because it seems like every director, if you look at their career, if they have like this weird turn in their career, you can generally trace it back to a very personal film that didn't work out well. And that was like one of the first big failures that Tim Burton had. And not only that, it was a very personal film to him because it was like based on the Topps card series that he grew up with and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, so I feel like that's the moment things kind of turned for him. But no, like Ed Wood is like peak Tim Burton right there.
Yeah, it's my favorite Tim Burton film too.
I mean, you have that ride of, like Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, Batman 2,
I gotta give him credit for Big Fish. Which
That
is
was one of his
post-Mars
latter
Attacks.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the few ones that he did after Mars Attacks that wasn't a remake or a reboot.
I mean, I
Yeah.
would go back to Ed Wood or Edward Scissorhands first, but Big Fish was a good movie, right? And
Yeah.
I
Keep talking, guys. I got to see if this is my. I don't think it's my car, but somebody's car is going off outside. I don't think.
What were you saying? That you liked Ed Wood?
well, Ed Wood is my favorite Tim Burton movie. It's one of my favorite movies. But if we're
You
just talking
know,
about,
it's a good movie, but I don't know if it's one of my favorite. I thought it was a good movie.
but as in terms of Tim Burton's career, I mean, I agree with Tom. I mean, I loved Mars Attacks, and it completely bombed at the box office.
I've
And
never
when you
seen
look,
it. I've never seen Mars Attacks. Couldn't evaluate.
I'm a little less harsh on saying that his career completely nosedived after that, because I really also enjoyed Sleepy Hollow.
I like Sleepy
Uh,
Hollow. I like Sleepy Hollow. I like Beetlejuice. I like
That was
Edward
kind of one of those
Scissorhands.
eras that, yeah, like Sleepy Hollow still fit
Batman.
in his classics, yeah.
Yeah,
But it also was a remake, reboot, cool thing, and that's the thing is he played it safe after Mars Attacks.
true. Yeah, I mean, even Corpse Bride is almost kind of an extension of his previous work, right?
Pretty much.
But I enjoyed it. I can't say the same for his Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or Planet of the Apes, but I liked Big Fish, right? But there's no way to look at his career after Mars Attacks and say that it was as consistent,
Right.
by any stretch. It really falls
Yeah, and
off.
I don't know if you remember when that came out, Price, but that was the movie that basically went up against Independence Day, and they both were basically movies about the same thing. The only difference was Independence Day was a serious take on the old disaster films. Mars Attacks, on the other hand, was a parody of the old disaster films. And I feel like if Mars Attacks had come out a year after Independence Day, 6 months after Independence Day, it may have played. Because at that point, we had kind of gone through the whole craze of Independence Day, and then to have a movie like that come out on the heels of it would have been because it was like the perfect timing of Airplane was the fact that it followed like the 5th airport movie. You know what I mean? Like it was just kind of like it was perfect timing for something like that.
I mean, the other thing
And
with
same thing with
Independence,
Blazing Saddles came in at the end of Westerns and stuff too, but you were going to say CC, I'm sorry.
oh, see, the other thing with Independence Day is it's a genuinely great movie. It holds
Well, it just
up.
sucked the air out of the room in that summer. That was the other thing.
I
Like,
mean,
there was like nothing else that
I-
mattered.
I did personally watch both movies, but I'm just thinking back. You get a movie that will still stand up as one of the great movies of its genre, anyways. That really impresses audiences and actually takes itself seriously and is taken seriously by the audience. There's not going to be a thirst 1 week later to go and see a total parody and junking of it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're in that mindset of, oh wow, like it can be this good.
That's what I mean. Everybody's attention was on Independence Day. They didn't care about Mars Attacks at that point. If Mars Attacks had come out that Christmas, I think it would have done so much better.
Yeah.
Jason Webster sends in 5 Australian dollary dues. Says my favorite horror films, Part 1, A Tale of Two Sisters Bedeviled, 2010. Somebody brought that one up earlier on one of the streams I was on. The Thing, classic. Alien, of course. Exuma, I don't know that one. Jaws, well, there you go. I consider Jaws more of a suspense thriller, but yeah, I see where you're coming from. Ringu.
The Thing is great though.
Oh yeah. Cairo, aka Pulse, and Thirst, 2009. Hey, it's some good mix there. Good job. Yeah, The Thing is very popular. Very popular. So yeah, I think unless there's anything else you guys in the chat want us to talk about, we're probably gonna put a cork in it for this episode. I mean, there really wasn't a whole lot of news stuff other than the cliffhanger thing, which we already talked about. Politics is really kind of soaking up most of the air. Variety was so dead they reposted their top 100 horror movies list that we went through already. That's how.
Yeah, and it's a shitty list.
Yeah. 6 wants us to do trivia. Like, what kind of trivia? I'd have to come up with. I'm not prepared.
See if
Maybe
there's
Mr.
online
Burger.
somewhere they have trivia.
Maybe, I suppose. Maybe we could. I don't know. I thought this was a good place to probably just wrap it up, but
I'm okay with that too. Whatever you want.
yeah. You had 7 Spider-Men tonight. I saw 1 Spider-Man tonight. I saw a whole fucking herd of puffy unicorns, all different colored. Like the blow-up costumes. There's like a whole herd of them. Yeah. Do I like the Funhouse from Toby Hooper? It's all right. It's a little slow.
How many of the Spider-Man costumes were Black Spider-Man?
None.
Otherwise known as Miles Morales.
Not Miles a one Morales. On mine. Well, I only had the one, and it was a regular Spider-Man. So, and that was just observing when I went to the store. So, yeah. Walter, I just kind of explained. I think Mars Attacks tanked because Independence Day just took all the attention. Again, there wasn't anything wrong with the movie. I just think you had 2 movies that were too similar, and you had a parody coming out too close to a movie that was too serious, and only one was gonna be the winner, right? And I think Independence Day worked so well because we hadn't had a disaster movie like that in a while, right? Like it had been a while since we had an Airport or a Poseidon Adventure or a Towering Inferno, and that's kind of what Independence Day was. It was basically, and that's what Mars Attacks was making fun of, while also using the same concept. And again, I just think it was the fact that you had them so close together that the other one just took all the, how we kind of get that sometimes with Armageddon versus Deep Impact, or some of those other movies. But this movie just had the bigger problem of being a not serious version of it, and the serious version just was so you had to be alive to realize. I mean, I'm sure maybe you were, Walter. I'm just saying, like, if you saw Independence Day in theaters, the hype that was around it. Like, that movie was just huge. That's probably the closest thing we had to Star Wars growing up, as far as like at that time, until like maybe Lord of the Rings or something like that, or Spider-Man or something like that. Because other than the Star Wars Episode 1, which is probably the closest otherwise, I mean, it just, Independence Day was the first time I remember going to a theater where it was literally like elbow to elbow. They had people standing in the back and shit. Like it was crazy. And it was like a rock concert, especially like when like the scene where Will Smith punches the alien and says, "Welcome to Earth." Like everybody fucking just cheered. Like at the end when, Randy Quaid comes in and he's like, "Up yours." And the whole thing, like, oh my God, you couldn't hear for like the next 5 minutes because people were just screaming and hollering. Like, I don't even think I saw heard the last part of dialogue at the end of the film until like, like a little, like the second or third time I saw it, because everybody was so loud. It was just an experience and a half. So yeah, no, I think that's really what it is. You just had something that just took all the attention away from the other. Glade Ribbon is in the house. How you doing, Glade Ribbon? Sends in 5 and says, "Welcome back to your regular schedule." Yeah, no shit. Windy, cold Wisconsin All Hallows after being spoiled all month and freakishly warm, nice weather. So Glade must be in the same neck of the woods I'm in. So yeah, I know what you're talking about, Glade. I feel bad for the kids because they had a warm week all week until today, basically. Like last night, it decided it was going to get cold and rainy.
I'm feeling this. I spent 2 weeks in South Carolina. It was like mid 80s all the time, sunny, cool breeze. It's absolutely beautiful. Long days, bright. It didn't get dark till after 7 o'clock at night. And then I hop on a plane. I'm back here in Vancouver. It's overcast. It's rainy. It's cold. It's dank.
You went back to the land of dark.
It's dark at 6 o'clock at night. I'm like, what am I doing here?
Yeah. Oh yeah, and that reminds me, there was one scene I forgot about in Independence Day, the one that actually literally proudly could have blown the roof off. I'm surprised it didn't break the whole structure down. And that was at the end of that speech. When he gives that speech, and that is like one of the most rousing speeches ever in a fucking film. And he's like, today is our Independence Day. The whole theater just rocked. Like I swear, probably everybody in every other screening probably heard us.
It's also a clinic in how to make that kind of movie.
Yeah.
Because you don't even see the aliens until well past the halfway mark. They're practical.
The aliens are kind of inconsequential.
Exactly. But you don't blow your load on it. The whole like fear of them is very, very gradual.
What I really liked is how they compromised the idea of this more like organically strange, like spidery alien type of alien mixed with the standard small alien, big-eyed, that we always hear about in the, in people's stories, and then like the Area 51 tie-in and how the ships looked like the same shape we used to think of with UFOs, but when you really see them, they're more advanced than you realize. Like, they did a really good job of kind of just basically throwing everything at you that, like, anybody who, whatever you think an alien looks like, it works. Right? Yeah.
It's just an exquisitely made movie. I mean,
It is.
I and you know how I am about CGI. It's like, and I remember watching the extras on that movie, and when they blow up the cities, like they built the city in a model and they filmed it. Yeah, and that's an explosion. That is the city blowing up in front of your eyes.
Well, that and Godzilla has
real.
a lot more practical effects in it than most people realize. A lot of people attributed a lot of that stuff to CGI, and you'd be surprised how much of it's actually miniature and not actually CGI. But yeah, no, we can find a way to coexist. We can have peace. No peace.
That's a great one. Yeah. Yeah, and you feel it, right? It's hard to pull that off.
Snook the
seriously. Like, you're right. If you do not sell that scene, the whole thing falls apart. But it hits.
Oh, it's a great film. Squirrel that went up your ass. How you doing, buddy? Sends in $2 and says a trivia of laser discs. Well, I don't know. What do you mean a trivia of laser discs? I mean, I don't know what kind of trivia I could ask. I'd have to be prepared for that. I tried doing the trivia thing. It just wasn't too popular. It seemed like you guys weren't really into it. So, but
I had fun.
Oh, Brian asked, "What's wrong with the sequel to Independence Day?" The easier question to be would be, "What's not wrong with it?" First of all, it exists. Second, you don't have Will Smith in it. Third, it exists. And it's just so far from the mothership that it's just, I mean, I give them credit for going and running with the idea of, okay, it's 20 years later. We've now had to incorporate this technology that we had, gained into our lives, but it almost feels like we're way more advanced than we should be. Like, I don't know. It just feels like anybody's technology who could have been taken down by a virus, they can't be that fucking advanced. In their computer systems, like, that was what I'm saying. Like, they can't have been that much farther along than we were, right? So I don't know. There's just so many things wrong with it that it was unnecessary on top of it all. Kind of like the movies we were talking about earlier, where we don't need a cliffhanger reboot or sequel. We don't need, Beetlejuice, even though some people liked it. I get it. But at the end of the day, I just didn't feel like it was worth it. Jason Webster sends in another 5 Australian dollar dues to send in part 2. Of course, if it's horror, you got to have a part 2. You can't not have a part 2. Gunjiam, Haunted Asylum. Ooh, and here we go. Here's a classic. American Werewolf in London. Yeah. Phone from 2002. The Wrath. Bushin. I'm going to fuck this one up. Bushin Saba. Hopefully I didn't do that too bad. And Ready or Not from 20. I still need to see Ready or Not from 2019. I heard they're doing a sequel to that. That's the one with what's her face in it, Margot Robbie, right? If I'm not mistaken, is that the one I'm thinking of? Or is it
that movie went right past me?
Which movie?
Ready or Not.
I don't think I've seen that. That has Margot Robbie in it.
I think so. If it's the one I'm thinking of, it's like she's in this. She meets her boyfriend's parents, and it turns out they're like fucking psycho. And so like the whole night is like this survival thing. Is it Samara Weaving? Is that who's in it? Okay, Samara Weaving. Okay, I knew it was one of those ladies. Sorry, my bad. It's been a few years since it came
Samara
out.
Weaving? I don't even know.
Let's see here. Yeah, it is Samara Weaving. You're right, but she does look like Margot Robbie. You can see why I thought it was. But the funny thing about this movie is, I think it's been out of print already. But they're supposed to be getting a sequel, so that's probably why.
Oh, I
It's
see
like,
what you're
yeah,
saying,
she's
yeah.
meeting her in-laws, and it turns out they're like these fucking psychos, and they have like the survival game in their house. It's Hugo Weaving's niece, yeah, Samara Weaving.
She looks better than him.
I would hope so. No, the movie actually looked interesting, but it was just one that got past me, and I never ended up catching it. So, yeah, the trailer looked fun though. Might be one you'd be interested. I'm surprised you haven't seen it, Price, because you see like everything.
Yeah, I'm surprised as well, but what can I do? I flew under my radar.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm trying to remember what company made it. Maybe I could show the trailer here. Fox Searchlight. Why not? Fuck it. It'll be at the end. I can chop it out. It's kind of a Halloween-y horror movie. Maybe one if you haven't seen it. Recommendation blooper on the Twisters thing, because his character is yelling at the one of the other characters. He's like, "Why is Clark Kent yelling at me?" Like, it must have been the day he got the job or whatever. No, so yeah, if you guys missed it, that's Ready or Not. And it looked like it was pretty good. Maybe I have to check that out.
Trailer gives away a lot, but yeah, it's good.
Yeah, that's probably why I didn't watch it, because you can kind of tell where it's going.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it's Adam Brody? Okay. Steven would know. Steven would know. She was also in the Netflix film called The Babysitter. Okay. Interesting. As Jeremy says, interesting. All right. Well, with that, that's kind of like a dark Addams Family. You think about it. Thank you, Jason, for the recommendations. And Major Blazer sounds like they've seen it. Says, not terrible, just nothing new. Well, that's fine. Sometimes that's fine. You know? So, yeah. But with that, hopefully you guys have some plans for your Halloween evening. It's not Halloween Eve. That was last night. Your evening. Let's start with you, Price. What you got going on? You going to be doing a Quantum Leap show later, or are you taking the night off for Halloween?
No, we're gonna do I don't even know if I may be doing this by myself, but at 10 p.m. I'm gonna go over some scenes that I enjoyed in all the episodes that we've seen until now. And so it'll be kind of a non-standard episode of our streaming thing, but we'll still do it. And then at 11:45 p.m. I'm still doing the Night Owl. Again, hopefully there will be somebody doing it with me. I think there will be, but that's what's gonna
If
happen.
I get a second wind, I'll let you know. Like, yeah,
all right, it's cool. In both cases, I may do like a kind of, shorter streams.
No worries. CC, any Okie coming up?
Well, now that I'm in the partner program, I'm kind of keen to see how that's gonna go. But we need a new time slot, because that Friday night thing, especially right now, I gotta get some money earned, work some Uber, and Friday nights are pretty good at that, especially. So we need to find a new time to do it. But I'm interested. I want to put this whole monetization thing to practice.
All right, we'll have to work on that. So stay tuned for more info on when we're going to be doing Okie again, but it sounds like very, very soon.
Hopefully. Just, not on Friday nights.
Right.
I need to switch that up.
Sounds good. With that, wait, what? 6? I think you need to phrase that a little differently.
That sounds good, 6. I'm
just as she meant to. Yeah.
I'm actually on board for that, 6.
All right.
All right, kids. Take care of yourself and each other, and have a happy Halloween. Stay safe out there if you're out partying and all that business. See you on the morning show.